alphabetically, Afghanistan is the first country. So that's what we're going to learn about today. Let's pull up the map, and we're just going to figure out where is Afghanistan. So we all know it's a Middle East country. It borders Pakistan and to the east, and Iran to the west. Then we have some of the other stands up here, like Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. So Afghanistan is kind of in this mountainous, deserty part, the eastern part of the Middle East. So that gives you an idea of where Afghanistan actually is. Not too far from India. So what is the capital of Afghanistan? Zoom in here. Kabul. Kabul is the capital. Kabul has a population of 5 million people. So, compare that to cities in the United States. 5 million, that's probably larger than something like Chicago. So we have a Chicago-sized city in this mountainous desert of Afghanistan. I'm only mentioning that just to kind of talk about I don't know. A lot of Americans don't know a lot of these cities around the world. Cities that are way bigger than their own city, and they've never even heard about it. If I asked Americans, "Have you heard of Kabul?" Probably most of them would say no, and they certainly couldn't point it out on a map. And I'm not saying I'm any better, but I'm just making videos like this to kind of to learn myself and learn along with you. So Kabul, about 5 million people. That's fairly high altitude, almost 6,000 feet. Here's what it looks like. So clearly, a unique looking city. This is, you can have more of the downtown area down here. And then you have these, I always like these hill cities where you have these, you look up onto the hills and you see all these houses, especially at night. These are cool sights. Then you have the mountains in the background. So this is definitely a foreign sight. So let me pull up just Afghanistan, the Wikipedia for Afghanistan. So it's an Islamic country. It's actually, the actual name is the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. We talked about it's landlocked. That makes it difficult for trade when you have countries in between you and the ocean. You really can't access the other major economies. You have to pay extra to be able to get through those other borders. Afghanistan itself that's actually quite a large estimation, between 36 and 50 million people. I don't know why that range is so wide. It seems like they'd have a better idea of exactly who's there. Here's an interesting point. Popularly referred to as the graveyard of empires, the land has witnessed numerous military campaigns, including those by the Persians, Alexander the Great, the Maurya Empire, Arab Muslims, the Mongols, the British, the Soviet Union, and a U.S.-led coalition. So I've heard about this before, where Afghanistan is like the most difficult country to capture or to wage war with, because their geography is so great for defense. That the list we just talked about: the Mongols, the United States, Alexander the Great, the British, Russia. Some of the most powerful groups of people ever, and they were not able to control Afghanistan. So there's disadvantages to being landlocked, but there's also advantages and then of also having that mountainous and desert dry terrain is that it's really difficult for someone else to come in and take that from you. So Afghanistan has been influenced by both Iran and Indian cultural spheres. So it was a center for Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and then later Islam. From India, the British tried to subjugate Afghanistan, but they were repelled in the First Anglo-Afghan War. And the Second Anglo-Afghan War saw a British victory. But then there's a third. They had a third Anglo-Afghan War in 1919, and Afghanistan became a free and its own country, became independent. So it became the Kingdom of Afghanistan in 1926. It was a monarchy, but it was overthrown in 1973. And since then, we've had more wars, and then we're with the current Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Here's a touch on prehistory. Excavations of prehistoric sites suggest that humans were living in what is now Afghanistan at least 50,000 years ago, and that they had their farming communities were among the earliest in the world. I always think the prehistory is really cool, different countries. Here's medieval period. This is kind of an interesting piece. The Ghurid Empire. I've not heard of that word before, Ghurid Empire. So Gurd was essentially an Afghanistan empire. It originated in central Afghanistan. In 1219, Genghis Khan and his Mongol army overran the region. His troops are said to have annihilated these cities, and the destruction caused by the Mongols forced many locals to return to an agrarian rural society. So the Mongols sent them back a few years, basically. But also, I guess, just shows that the Mongols were successful, in, at least a part of controlling some of Afghanistan. So let's look more at the population. I have a populationpyramid.net, great resource. This is their population pyramid. Very heavily weighted toward the base. So they're a very young population. It looks pretty similar to Africa. So let me just pull up Africa. So actually, Afghanistan is younger than Africa in the continent. And Africa is very known for being a very young continent. Now let's look at the pyramid of Europe. The Europe is a much older pyramid. So just an older population. So pulling up Afghanistan, actually this is surprisingly young. I didn't realize how young they were. Looking at the gender differences, we can see the genders are about the same. So here's 5.1% compared to 4.9%. So 5.1% men, 4.9% women in this 2024 age group. That's pretty common. So you can see all of the different ages are like 0.2 percentage points greater for the men. Until you get into the older ages, then the women become more common. So as far as the gender differences, this is typical, but it's atypical in the way that they are such a young country. So I can't tell exactly from here. I guess I could do the math, but at least half the population is 20 or younger. I would roughly say about that. About half the population is under 20. So that's a surprisingly young population. I'm going to move out, so I'm going to add 5 years, and you can see the pyramid adjusts, and so it slowly ages. Currently, Afghan's population is around 44 million, and we were talking earlier, they were unsure, I guess. It ranges between 36 and 50 million. I'm not sure why that's so different. I guess we can look that up in a second. But anyway, this is saying it's about 40, 43, 44 million. If we adjust out, let's go to 2075. So they're going to more than double, or 2.5 times their current population. So Afghanistan is going to see a lot of growth over the next 50 years. And through 2100, they'll be up to about 130 million. So they will have more than tripled in size by 2100. So a lot of people watching this video will probably be alive by 2100. A lot of the younger people. And so in your lifetime, you'll see Afghanistan's population triple. So that's kind of a unique thing. I don't think too many countries will triple in population by 2100. Even a lot of countries in Africa, which I know are very young countries, even a lot of them won't triple by 2100. So I was not expecting that. That's kind of a unique piece of Afghanistan, that they're going to have a lot of. They're a young country and they're going to grow a lot. Let's look at their GDP. So they're about 17 billion, fairly small. And how do they rank? So in terms of nominal GDP, they're 124th. So that's pretty low. And in terms of purchasing power parity, they're 102nd. So what's the difference in these two metrics? Why are they 102nd in purchasing power parity, but 124th in nominal? So nominal GDP looks at the market rate for currencies, right? So we have the US dollar, you have the Afghanistan currency. And if we want to find the GDP, we have to convert that into dollars. But the currencies are always fluctuating. The dollar is strengthening or the dollar is weakening, or the Afghanistan currency is strengthening or weakening, and that can impact the nominal GDP. So for that reason, a lot of people will look at the purchasing power parity. And purchasing power parity looks at what can actually be bought within that country. So if the country has a cheaper cost of living with a larger population, then you'll find it common that those countries will rank better in purchasing power parity than in terms of nominal. So we can see they're 102nd, and that's because their dollar is going farther in their country compared to what that currency might go somewhere else. So they're ranked higher in purchasing power parity. So that's common with countries like India has a large population. It's cheaper to live there. So then what their currency can buy in their country goes farther before converting it to a different currency. So they have a long way to go in terms of the economy. They're a bit behind there, 124th. And here's all the countries ranked. Considering they are 36th in terms of population, but they're only 124th in terms of GDP, then yes, they're quite behind on the economy. But once again, a lot of that's going to have to do with the way that they're landlocked. They're stuck between, their neighbors themselves aren't all that rich. Iran, Pakistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, these are not rich countries. They're surrounded by mountains and deserts. So these are not factors that are going to lead to a very strong economy. These are points that will weaken their economy. So here's the flag of Afghanistan. It's tricolor, black, red, green. In the middle is the national emblem, which includes a mosque with a pulpit, flags, wheat sheaves, and the date 1298, which is actually 1919 in the Gregorian calendar. So and most of the world uses the Gregorian calendar, so it looks like Afghanistan uses a different calendar. But in 1919 was when they gained their independence from the British. The black represents the dark past of Afghanistan. That's kind of an interesting way for them to put that. Red is the bloodshed for independence, and green is the hope for the bright future. And you can see here the flags changed many times over the last 100 years, and we've finally settled on our current one. So let's look up the cost of living in Kabul, the capital. And we'll go to this trusted site. Let's convert this to dollars so we kind of recognize the currency better. So for a meal, an inexpensive restaurant, they have it as $2.19 for a meal. And a meal for two people at a mid-range restaurant, they have it at $10. Earlier we were talking about, we knew it was going to be a cheap place to live, and a water bottle, 15 cents. Go down to the rent. So an apartment, one bedroom in the city would be $83 is what this is saying. So this would be like the price for locals, and I'm sure that would be on the lower end as well. But that's what this has as the average. Usually, if you actually want to go and stay in a city and rent an apartment, you can expect to pay a lot more than what they actually have on this site. But that is quite a low number, $83 per month. And then if you have the apartment 3-bedroom in the city, then it has $187. So even though it would actually be a little bit more, usually that's still quite low. Here's eggs. 12 eggs would be $1.58. So about half the cost of what it is where I live. So I selected Kabul instead of the whole country, and then Kabul has these numbers as well. So let's see, Kabul for the apartment. Yeah, so it's still about $86 for a month for an apartment. Let's compare it to New York. Okay, so here's New York. A meal would be about $28 in New York, but only the equivalent would be about $2.63 in Kabul. Now, once again, the numbers on this are usually a bit low, so add some to this. But the point is, this is going to be much cheaper than living in somewhere like New York. And how they have this estimate, you would need around $1,200 to maintain the same standard of life that you would have in New York with $11,000. So you could either live in New York with $11,000 a month, or you could live in Kabul for $1,200 a month. Oversimplification, it's not going to be that cheap, especially for like an American living standard. But once again, the point is it's much cheaper than in New York. All right, so looking at Airbnb, I set the range from October 1st to 29th. So this is if you spent a month in Kabul for an Airbnb. So let's look at just what they might be Airbnb for. I don't want to spend too much for this month. We'll just put it at 1,000. We want to have the whole whole home to ourselves. So not sure what to make of this listing. It's different. They're kind of only showing this one big room they have. Let's go back to the map. So I raised the prices some. Let's look at this. So for $900 a month for an Airbnb, which, like I said, this is not at all what you saw in the cost of living we were looking at earlier. the cost of living had it as like $80 a month for an apartment, and these Airbnb prices are quite a bit higher. But for $900 a month, this is what you get in an Airbnb in Kabul. So if I had to choose between United States or this $900 Airbnb, I would definitely take the United States. For me, this Airbnb is not not appealing. So I've looked at Airbnb rates in other countries, and sometimes you can get pretty good rates, but this is not too appealing. So another example, decent view there. The places it's not bad, but I just feel like, bang for your buck, you're just not getting that much. So we're on Google Earth. I want to kind of get a street view of some different places here. So let's see where we can drop let's check out this street here. All right, so we're in, put us in a store. So this is what the street view got us. It's I don't know, what kind of store is this? Facebook. So I guess this is someone did this little marketing for their store. They put it on the Google Street View. So it's a very dry city. You can tell there's not much green here. If I kind of tilt the camera, it kind of gives you that 3D view. Very mountainous. It's desert and it's mountain. I mean, that's what I'm getting from Afghanistan. Let's zoom in another time. I was playing around with this. I found some snow. I was not expecting to find snow in Afghanistan. Does this look like something you would expect from Afghanistan? Kabul we looked at it, it is 6,000 feet, right? It is elevated. So it does make sense that it'd be snow, but I never would have thought we would find snow in Afghanistan. I mean, this looks more like, something like Russia, or not Afghanistan. So this is kind of eye-opening. You just never would think of, this is Kabul, this is their capital as well, so you never think of Afghanistan having like a snowy capital. Let's look over at the best times to visit Kabul, and I use WeatherSpark for that. So WeatherSpark gives you all kinds of it gives you all the data points for temperature, cloud cover, precipitation. If you just want the easy, what's the best time to visit, you can scroll down and you can find the tourism score. So here we go. Tourism basically relies on it being a good temperature and without much rain. So they have it as June or September as the best times to visit. So warm without much cloud cover or rain. Then beach score really is just purely how hot is it and how little rain is there. And then the more heat, less rain, the better the beach score is. So they have it as 9 is a very high score. So in July, that's that is beach weather. But there's no beach in Afghanistan, so it's kind of a silly metric to use for Afghanistan. Maybe the tourism score would be better. So one last thing, I wanted to look up what language they speak, and so they have about 40 different languages, which makes it tough to administer a country like that, which also might contribute to a lower GDP. Dari and Pashto are the two official languages. I haven't heard of either of those before, so it's clearly right. It's a foreign country to me. It's something different. That's why we're learning here. Dari is spoken by 75% of the population, and Pashto by 48%. So there's a lot of multilingual speaking there. A lot of them know both of the major languages. English is at 6%. So there we go. That's Afghanistan. I learned a few things. Let me know what you learned as well. I'm going to make more of these videos. So if you wanted to see something else in this regarding the country, the demographics, any questions that I should answer when I'm going through learning about a country like this, let me know in the comments and I can include it in the next video. So thank you guys for watching. This is my first one. I'm going to do this for each of the countries, and we're going to do this over time, and we're going to learn together. So I'm excited for this. It'll be interesting. I love just kind of learning about it this way, learning about the people that live in a country, and it's really easy to learn something new just by kind of going through these steps like this and learning about the country. So I'll see you guys in the next video.